All right, what is going? What's happening? How's everyone doing today? My name is Chuck, and welcome back to a brand new video. All right, today, fellas, we're gonna be hopping into my top assault rifle builds for every single assault rifle, not a top 5. We're going through every single assault rifle that is in Warzone. I'm gonna give you guys the most meta, the best builds you guys can possibly have for each and every single AR. Now, I want to specify, I'm gonna make all these ARs the best I possibly can, but not all of them are going to be really all that great. There's some weapons, like specifically some of the Vanguard ARs, which are not nearly as usable as some of the Modern Warfare and the Cold War ARs. So that being said, if you guys could do me a favor and drop a like in the next 5 seconds for some good luck and subscribe with all notifications turned on. There's a lot of y'all out there right now that are watching this video that are not yet subscribed, so I don't know what you're doing. Subscribe. So jumping to this here, we're gonna be doing the list from top to bottom, what you'd see in your game. We're just gonna go straight top to bottom, and I'm gonna give you guys a whole bunch of stuff in here. It's not gonna be in any particular order, but obviously some of these ARs are gonna be a lot better than some of the other ones. So first thing here, of course, is the Modern Warfare M4A1. Let's get in this muzzle category. We're gonna throw on the monolithic suppressor. This is the best suppressor for any of the Modern Warfare ARs, so I'd highly recommend you guys throw on the monolithic on this gun. That's out in the barrel section. We're gonna throw on the stock M16 Grenadier barrel. This is the best barrel here for the M4. So this is pretty much my only recommendation here, minus maybe the Corvus Custom Marksman. But for me, I'm going with the stock M16 pretty much 9 times out of 10. After that, we're gonna go to the underbarrel section. We're gonna throw on the Commando foregrip here, because this really realistically doesn't need all that much recoil stabilization like with a Merc or a Ranger. It's not beneficial to run any of those. So we're just gonna throw on the Commando here and kind of call it the day at that. After that, in the magazine section, this is one of those things where you guys can have a little bit of liberty to kind of choose what you want, whether it be a 50 or a 60 round magazine. So if I'm going to go for a 60, I will be running this gun with an optic, but if I'm trying to be a little bit more agile, a little bit more mobile, I'm going to be throwing on like a 50 round magazine. I'm going to throw on like a tac laser or something else like that and use the iron sights, as I really like doing that here because I play a lot of Rebirth Island. So you guys just kind of have to decipher. But for me right now, let's go with the 60 on this gun. And then for our last option here, we're going to go for the optic. We're going to go throw on that beautiful VLK 3x optic. This is an absolutely beautiful optic here, and this is a great build here for the M4A1. It's gonna have a tad bit of recoil. It's gonna be an outstanding AR to use here in Warzone, and highly recommend you guys use this M4 build here in Warzone. Now let's move on to our next gun. Now we're taking a look at the Vanguard STG. This gun here is probably one of the best Vanguard ARs you guys can possibly use in Warzone. So let's hop into this one. Muzzle category, first thing we're gonna throw on here is gonna be the AMAX silencer here for sound suppression and accuracy. I do believe this is the better one. We don't want to lose our damage range of the Mercury, so that's the reason we're going with the AMAX silencer. After that, in the barrel section, we're going to throw on the VDD 760mm 05B barrel. This is the most accurate one. This is kind of like a task force barrel style equivalent. This is going to be the best barrel to make you the most accurate you can possibly be, and it's also going to just help your gun be a bit more controllable. And this gun doesn't have that much recoil, especially after the different updates where they pretty much buffed the heck out of this gun. So you guys are definitely going to like this barrel. After that, in the underbarrel section, what we're going to do is we're going to go for the M1941 hand stop, that recoil control and accuracy. Some people like to get away with using maybe the Carver foregrip or something else like that, but you don't really need hipfire accuracy. I feel like the 1941 hand stop is going to be great because it also increases your overall accuracy, which is sometimes definitely a huge thing with these Vanguard weapons. They used to have a lot of bloom, but even now that they don't have bloom anymore, it still feels like sometimes your shots go everywhere. So we're trying to make the accuracy, you know, as much as we possibly can. We're trying to bolster it up there for, like, you know, the maximum we can. After that, in the magazine section, we're going to go through on the 8mm Kurz 60 round drum. I've had great success running this like exact setup here with the Kurz 60 round drum. So this is my recommendation. I haven't had too much of a choice or too much of a chance to try out some of these other ones since they kind of buffed it. But to be honest with you guys, they weren't really all that great beforehand. And I just feel like having a 60 round magazine on this gun works out incredibly, you know, awesome. And I've had great success with it here on Rebirth Island and also on Caldera. Now on the ammunition side of things, we're going to go through on lengthened here for bullet velocity. Bullet velocity is always a great thing. It's going to make your shots hit faster. So that's the reason we're running lengthened on this. After that, in the rear grip section, we're going to go throw on, what is it? I believe it is the fabric grip here. No, I take that back. We're throwing the leather grip. My bad. The fabric grip is going to be a little bit better for, like, you know, obviously mobility, but you're going to lose a bit of accuracy. So we're throwing the leather grip here, which is increase our ADS speed and aiming stability, but it's also not going to give us any cons. So I'd recommend to go with the leather grip. Sometimes, you know, I mix up some of these different grips in here because there's so much stuff for these Vanguard weapons. It's a little bit crazy. Now in the optic section, we go through on the G16 2.5 times. This is pretty much like the closest you're going to get to a VLK 3x optic or an Axle Arms 3x for the other Modern Warfare Cold War ARs. So the G16 is going to be my optic of choice on this gun. Now in the stock section, what we're going to do is we're going to go through on the VDD 27 Precision for horizontal recoil control and aim down sight speed. This is really solid, and I absolutely love this thing. I wouldn't really recommend any of the other stocks in here. I just think that this one is unbelievably great, so I've used this pretty much all the time. Now for our perks, what we're going to do is we're going to throw on focus here for our very first perk that increase that flinch resistance. Sometimes you can get hit off target when you're trying to shoot at people. It's never a good thing. It's going to make you obviously miss more shots, and ultimately that can lead to you dying or going down. So we're going to throw on focus, which should negate some of that. And then for our last perk here, what we're going to do is we're going to go throw on fully loaded to increase our starting ammo capacity. As I mean, this is always good at any point in time. There's really not a better perk in here. So it doesn't matter if you're getting this late game, mid game, early game, you're going to have maximum ammo in your STG, which is always really, really sick. Because you come out of there with like what, like one clip or something like that, and it's pretty much no other ammo, which kind of sometimes sucks. So having this is really good. This is my full build here for the STG. Hope you guys enjoy this one. Really solid gun right here, probably the best Vanguard AR you guys can use. Now let's take a look at here at the NZ41. This is a rather interesting AR to use. I don't use this all that much because it's not nearly as good as some of the other ones in the game, but nonetheless, let's give you guys a build here for it. So first thing in here is going to be the AMAX silencer, obviously trying to stay off the radar here, and this is not going to decrease our damage range, which is good. Now in the barrel section, we're going to throw on the Orb Weaver 360mm BC barrel. This is pretty much like the equivalent of the 760mm barrel for the STG, which I really like. So we're going to throw on this one here. Now in the underbarrel section, what we're also going to do here is going to go down to the very last option for that recoil control and accuracy, throw on the M1941 hand stop. This is a great grip for this gun. It works out pretty nicely. Now in the magazine section, what I'd recommend is what we all were running a lot beforehand, like before when we were playing a lot of Caldera exclusively, was a 6.5mm Sakura 50-round magazine. This works out pretty nicely, though I actually have seen people basically not run a magazine at all and stick with the base 30 round on here and just kind of keep the ammunition the way it is. It's kind of one of those things you guys have to understand, like it's up to you. It's your personal preference. The recoil on this gun can be a little bit interesting. That's why some people actually take the Sakura 50-round magazine instead of actually using something that's going to increase its damage or so on and so forth, is because, I mean, it's going to increase the fire rate and your recoil control and accuracy, which is always a good thing with this gun because it actually for sure needs that. Now on the ammunition side of things, of course, we're going to go with lengthened here to increase our bullet velocity. And then in the rear grip section, we're going to go ahead and once again throw on the leather grip here for increased ADS speed and aiming stability. No cons, you really can't complain much about this one. Now in the optic section, once again, going to throw on the G16 2.5 times. This, of course, is going to be the best optic in here for this gun, so I'd recommend for you guys to do this. Now in the stock section, we have a couple of different options in here, but usually speaking, what people are running is going to be the LOR reinforce. That actually works out really nicely, and I've had a lot of good success when I was running this myself. So you guys can definitely do that, or I've seen other people run the Orb Weaver E-Pack. This works out pretty nicely as well. It's one of those things you guys have to just kind of try and see, you know, what's going to work out best for you. I mean, I've had good success with both of them, but for me personally, I'm probably going to go for the more stable one, which is the Orb Weaver E-Pack. And this is gonna be my choice. Now in the perk section, we have a couple of different things in here, but to be honest with you guys, I'd probably just recommend running brace for the initial firing recoil. This gun has a weird tendency after about 5 or 6 shots to kind of really start like being kind of odd and kicking around when it really doesn't need to, and I just don't like that at all. So I just don't really think there's any of this other stuff in here that's really that great. I mean, I just say brace is the way to go. Now in the perk 2 section, pretty much it's the same thing with the STG. We're gonna throw in fully loaded, as I mean, it's always good to have maximum starting ammo capacity. And once again, there's not really much in here that's gonna be that beneficial. So this is my full build here for the NZ41. I don't particularly recommend this gun, but it's still nonetheless, this is the setup for it if you guys want to go use it in Warzone. Okay, next up, we're going to be taking a look at the Volk here. This is just next up on our list. And this doesn't even get built here as an AR. This kind of gets built as a hybrid. So we're not even going to make this more or less like the other 2 Vanguard assault rifle builds. This is kind of like a sniper support slash, you know, SMG AR hybrid. First thing on here is going to be the recoil booster. We're actually running this here particularly because we're trying to use this for closer to medium range at max. So the recoil boosters can be the way to go. This is just not a very good long range AR as of right now. So that's why we're trying to make this into a hybrid. So the recoil booster is the way to go for that. In the barrel section, what we're going to do here is we're actually going to throw on the Crowstick 428mm 05V barrel. This is going to help us out here with our recoil. It's also going to look pretty sick here for this variant, and I actually really like it. I've had some good success with it, but if you don't want to run anything at all, you technically do not actually have to run a barrel, or you can even run the VDD 287mm barrel, as this will be even better for closer range. It's one of those things you guys can switch back and forth between the two, just depending on how agile, how mobile you really want your gun. Now, after that, in the underbarrel section, we're actually going to go throw on the Carver foregrip here for recoil control and hipfire accuracy. This is a pretty solid one here. This is going to make it so that your gun's not going to move around too much. But if you feel like your recoil control is pretty solid, you guys can get away with one of the Mark VI skeletal, the Mark V skeletal. This is just going to increase your ADS speed. It's not going to have any other benefit or con. So it's kind of up to you guys and what you want to be able to do. But for me, the Carver foregrip and that actually works out pretty nicely. So basically just choose between the two of them. Or if you really feeling like you're getting a little bit crazy with it, feel like you're just an absolute tank, you're just going to be able to, fly around, the M3 Ready Grip is also another choice. These Vanguard weapons have so many different choices, so many different minor things you can tweak on them. But for me personally, the Carver or the Mark VI Skeletal is going to be the way to go. After that, in the magazine section, y'all are going to want to go through on the 7.62 Garanko 40 round magazine. Once again, I said we're not making this into a very long range AR, so the Garanko is going to be the way to go for this. In the ammunition side of things, we're also once again going to run lengthen, though you guys can definitely get away with running hollow point here because this is going to be a closer range thing, or you can even get away with running incendiary because it just depends if you're really trying to use this at close range, like an SMG, or if you're trying to use this as sniper sport, you probably want to switch it up. Close range as an SMG, incendiary, if you're trying to get away with it for a little bit longer range, of course, lengthen's going to be the way to go. But for me, I use this primarily as an SMG, so I'm going to use incendiaries. After that, in the rear grip section, we're going to go through on the fabric grip here because we don't really care if we have a tad bit of loss in accuracy. That's not really too big of a deal. We're trying to make this thing super agile, super mobile, so the fabric grip is the way to go. After that, in the optics section, we're going to go through on the slate reflector here, as this works out pretty nicely and keeps you a very, it gives you a very good clean iron sight to look through. Not an iron sight, but a very clean optic to look through. I absolutely love that. In the stock section, we have a couple options in here, to be honest with you guys. But to fully keep it a stack, we're just going to go with the SA converted here for that sprint to fire and movement speed, as this is going to be the best option, in my opinion, for this gun. Now, in the perks section, this is where it can really differ up based on like how you're trying to use this gun. So I have used steady here beforehand, but if you're really feeling like you need that reload speed, go ahead and run sleight of hand. I've gotten some great success here running steady, so I'm just going to go with that, as this is going to be what I'm trying to really move around, get a little bit finessey with. So steady's the way to go. And now in the perk 2 section, we're going to run fully loaded here, as once again, with a lot of these Vanguard ARs, perk 2 doesn't really have too much benefit. I wish they would have separated some of the stuff up here, but fully loaded is just, I guess, kind of the way to go for this one. So this is my full build here for this gun. Hope y'all enjoy this one. Not necessarily a long range AR, pretty decent at mid range, close range though. Our next gun up in here is going to be the Automaton. Automaton got nerfed pretty bad, as it was really solid as soon as Caldera came out, but it got kind of like unnerfed, kind of buffed a little bit. So now it's pretty decent. So let's give you guys a build here for it. Muzzle category, we're going to once again throw on that MX silencer here. It's only going to decrease our ADS speed. It also gives us 3 benefits this time because, I mean, you definitely need it. The recoil on this thing was a little bit abysmal. So the MX is going to be the way to go. After that, in the barrel section, we're going to use the ZAC 600mm BFA barrel. This is going to be the best one to go with. You guys can get away with running the Anastasia Sniper, the whatever you want to call this one. But I do feel like I need a little bit more of that recoil control in this gun specifically. It's just really not that great without it, so I'd use the ZAC barrel on this thing. Now in the underbrow section, we're going to go down here to the M1941 hand stop, recoil control, and accuracy. We don't really care too much about that idle sway control. I mean, we're not using this with like a 4-time sight. It's just not gonna happen. I just don't think this gun has low enough recoil or if it's accurate enough to be able to use a 4-time sight on it. So the hand stop is gonna be great. Now in the magazine section, we're going to go through on the 75 round drum magazine here, the Sakura 75 round drum. This is the basic ammunition type. It doesn't, decrease anything in your damage range, any of that stuff. This is just going to give you guys more ammo, which I definitely like, though you can definitely get away with running the 45 round magazine if you want to have a little bit more mobility. I've done both of them, but personally, I prefer the 75 round drum, as this gun doesn't hit sometimes nearly as hard as I feel like it should. So having extra ammo in my, magazine is always a good thing. Of course, in the ammunition side of things, we're running the lengthened. I just don't really have to explain this too much. The rear grip section, we're once again going to throw on the leather grip here, ADS speed and aiming stability. And then the optics section, throw on the G16 2.5 times for that great magnification. And then in our stock section, we are going to run the Empress broadsword for initial firing recoil, aim down sight speed, and recoil recovery. Now, in our perk section, there's a few different things we can do in here. But to be honest with y'all, I mean, I'm just going to go tight grip. This thing needs tight grip. I mean, you need to be able to have that accuracy during sustained fire. This gun, for whatever reason, they just made it like shoot everywhere but where you're trying to aim at. So tight grip is going to really narrow down your bullet spread, and that's super beneficial. Now in the perk 2 section, fully loaded. Once again, ain't got to do too much with it. This is just the way to go. This is my full build here. It's kind of crappy that my variant was beautiful, the Emerald Eye. Now I can't see it anymore. I wish they'd fix that with some of these weapons. We only have a little bit of bronze on the top of it, but this is the AR. Now let's take a look at the Cooper carbine. This is a pretty solid one here that gets built relatively similarly regardless if you're using this as an AR or an SMG. So let's jump into a muzzle category, throwing on that beautiful MX silencer here. Ain't gonna talk too much about it. In the barrel section, we got that 22 Cooper Custom. This is going to be my barrel of choice. I always run this. I just believe this is going to be the best barrel out there for this gun. It's going to make it super, super accurate. And this gun's got very, very little recoil by the time we're done building it. It's going to be almost like a laser beam, which I really like that. Now in the underbarrel section, we're going to go throw on the carver foregrip here for recoil control and hipfire accuracy. The reason we're doing this instead of like the M1941 hand stop is because sometimes you can get away with this at close range because the ammunition type we're going to use, you can actually hipfire a little bit. So this will kind of help you out. It'll save your bacon a little bit. But if you don't really care too much for hipfire accuracy and you want straight recoil control, the hand stop is going to be the way to go. After that, in the magazine side of things, we're throwing the 9mm 60-round drum. I had some great success running this as an AR and, of course, as an SMG. Don't really know why we're running the 9mm for like an AR, considering it, you know, decreases a whole bunch of stuff, but it's just how this gun performs the best is when you run this attachment. So that's the reason we do this for an AR and an SMG. Now, on the ammunition side of things, we're going to go for, where is it? The lengthened, of course. I was trying to find it because normally it's at the bottom, but over here it's at the top. So lengthened is the way to go for this gun. In the rear grip section, we got the leather grip here once again. We're not trying to decrease our accuracy because these Vanguard guns have just, I really hate the way they're made. And so this just works out pretty nicely. You know, we don't decrease our accuracy. We don't need to lose any of that. Now in the optic section, we are going for the G16 2.5 times, pretty standard here for the optic on an AR. And then in the stock section, we're going to go for the, what is it? We're actually going here for the Cooper 45 RS. It took me a second to figure it out. I was like, hold up, wait a minute. Which one was I using? But this is what I was using here, and I've dropped a lot of kills with some of these attachments. Like, you just get confused which ones they are, and it's hard to remember every single, you know, meta build for every single AR, especially these Vanguard weapons when there's 10 attachments on them. After that, though, in the perk section, we're going to go through on, what is it, brace here. This is going to be great for that initial firing recoil. I absolutely love that. Or you guys can do tight grip if you want your, you know, accuracy to be even better. I find tight grip or brace work out really nicely. I don't feel the need to run fleet, vital, or icy veins. It just doesn't make that much sense to me. So brace or tight grip is going to be the way to go. Then in the perk 2 section, once again, fully loaded is the way to go. It's my full build here on the Cooper carbine. This is what I run on this thing. You guys can have some good success with it on Rebirth or Caldera, whatever it may be. It's a pretty solid AR. Now jumping into a more simple build here with the Kilo 141. This is a laser beam of an AR that I absolutely love using. So let's not waste no time and get into this thing. Muzzle category. Mono suppressor, you guys already know what it is. Mono's gonna be the way to go. After that, in the barrel section, we have the Singard Arms 19.8 Prowler barrel. Damage range, bullet velocity, recoil control, of course. This is the largest barrel possible, and of course, the 16.6 does everything the 19.8 does, but it does less of it, so we need the 19.8 Prowler. After that, in the underbarrel section, Commando foregrip. I ain't gotta explain this too much here. Recoil stabilization, aiming stability. We don't really need anything else. The Kilo has very, very minimal recoil to begin with, so the Commando is going to work out pretty nicely for this. After that, in the magazine section, we're going to run the 60-round magazine here, or if you want to, you can run the 50-round magazine. It's one of those things, personal preference for me. 60 rounds works pretty nicely if I'm going to use this with a VLK 3x optic. 50 rounds works really nicely if I'm going to use the Corp Combat Hollow, but for me right now, I'm running this with the hollow sight, so we're going to throw on this. And then, of course, like I said, the last attachment is going to be my Corp Combat Hollow, as I absolutely love using this thing as a medium range AR. Works out very nicely, especially when you're playing Rebirth Island, but nonetheless, if you don't want to run this, go throw on like a VLK, run like a 60-round magazine, and pretty much that's the only attachments you're ever going to need to change up on this build. So Corp Combat Hollow works out really nice. This is a beautiful variant, beautiful gun. Love using this thing. Hope y'all enjoy this build here. Definitely a top tier AR right now. All right, now let's take a look at the M13. This is a beautiful variant right here. Let's jump into this thing. First thing, muzzle, mono suppressor on this. Now in the barrel section, we're going to run the Tempest Marksman. This is the largest barrel out of anything, so we have to run the Tempest Marksman in this build. I don't really feel the need to run anything else. They're just not nearly as effective. The Tempest Marksman is the way to go. After down in the underbarrel section, what we're going to do is we're going to throw in the Commando foregrip here. Recoil stabilization, aiming stability. You can't go wrong with this thing. Absolutely love the Commando on this gun. Magazine section, you for sure need that 60-round magazine. You for sure do. Though I actually have recently, I got away from the 50-round, and it worked out pretty nicely to increase my mobility. So if you feel like you need some mobility, run the 50, but if you feel like you can get out to 60, run the 60. It also looks pretty cool here because this specific variant, so the 60 is the way to go. And after that, in the last bit, we're going to throw in an optic here. We're going to throw on the VLK 3x optic. Absolutely love running this with the VLK as opposed to like a Corp Combat Hollow. But you guys can definitely run the Corp Combat Hollow with, let's say, a 50-round magazine. This is my full build here for the M13. Hope y'all enjoy this one. This is a pretty solid AR. All right, next up, we're going to take a look at the Modern Warfare AK-47. Not to be confused with the Cold War AK-47. This is a different one. Some people are going to get this confused, so I have to explain this right now. Okay, this is not a good AR. I'm gonna keep it a stack. It's not a good AR, but here, if you want to use it, this is gonna be the build for it. Muzzle category, mono suppressor. After that, in the barrel section, 23 Romanian for this is going to be the heaviest barrel out there. It's also going to block off your under barrel here, which you guys are going to be able to see. So we can't use an under barrel. So in the magazine section, what we're going to do is we're going to throw on the 75 round drum magazine. This is just kind of the way to go. I mean, I don't really find it beneficial to run the 40 on this thing. It just needs the 75. You might as well just kind of make this thing as lethal as it possibly can be. It's not going to be super agile, but it's going to be, lethal enough. Now, after that, in the rear grip section, we're going to throw on the stipple grip tape here for that aim down sight speed, sprint to fire speed. You kind of need this on this gun right now because it's a little bit slow. And lastly, to finish this thing off in the optic section, the VLK 3x optic. I don't ever recommend y'all use this. I really don't. But if you guys want to use the Modern Warfare AK-47, at least it looks cool. That's just kind of that. It's really not all that great, but you can use it. Now taking a look at a banger of an AR, the AMAX, CR56 AMAX. Absolutely great. Love this thing. This is just a custom variant just so I can have this camo on here. You can't get this camo anymore, by the way, and also you have to get this camo onto the gun and save it as a variant in Modern Warfare multiplayer, which I'm not even sure if you can do right now with the state of the game. I don't know if they just took that out of the game. There's a whole bunch of stuff wrong with that. So first thing, muzzle category, mono suppressor, throwing that on there. Barrel section, we're going to throw on the XRK Zodiac S440 barrel. Largest barrel, going to make this the most effective it can possibly be as an AR. So that's the reason we're doing that. After that, in the underbarrel section, Commando foregrip, we ain't going to do nothing else with this. The Merc foregrip's too much. Range of foregrip's too much. It's just basically overkill, though I have seen people on console say that the recoil is a little bit much of the AMAX, so the Ranger would be the way to go if you feel like you can't control it. But for everybody else, the Commando foregrip is going to yield you more mobility, and it's just going to work out pretty nicely. After that, in the magazine section, we only have one option in here. That's the 45 round mag. So we're throwing on the 45 round mag. And then to finish this whole thing off here, it's just basically pretty simple. VLK 3x optic. This is like your OG meta build here for the AMAX. This thing dominated Warzone for a long time, and it's still actually really good. So if y'all want to, you can definitely use it. Onto a gun here that sometimes can be called underrated, but I'm gonna tell you right now, nobody uses this thing. It's the A94. This is the Commodore variant. This came with like a P90, I believe. It's got a pretty cool tracer to it. It makes people explode into like 8-bit particle things. It's kind of neat. But as far as like effectiveness in game, really not all that neat. It's not that great. So muzzle category, first thing, mono suppressor on here. Barrel, we're throwing the AN94. This is the Factory X 438mm barrel. This is like the largest barrel out here. We need to run this on this gun to make it effective at, its designated range, which is going to be medium to longer range, definitely not close range. So after that, underbarrel section, Commando foregrip here, recoil stabilization, aiming stability. Ain't gonna explain this one too much. In the magazine section, we're gonna throw on the 60-round casket mag. Apart from it looking cool, it also gives us a 60-round magazine. It makes it like more viable. I mean, I don't think 45 rounds on this gun's really all that great. 60 is kind of the way to go. And to finish off this whole build here, optic section, we got the VLK 3x optic. Don't necessarily recommend this gun. It's kind of mid. It's like actually really, really mid, unbelievably mid. But it works. You can still use it a lot better than the Modern Warfare AK-47, that's for sure. All right, now we're taking a look at the Modern Warfare FAL. This gun doesn't ever get used in Warzone. I don't see it. The only time I was seeing it is if people were hacking. But if you got a pretty nice trigger finger and you can stay on target, well, this is going to be the gun for you. Muzzle category, mono suppressor on this bad boy. Barrel section, we're going to throw on the XRK Marksman. This is the largest barrel possible. Absolutely love the XRK on this thing. Use it in multiplayer, use it in, Warzone. So it's definitely good. After that, in the underbarrel section, we're actually going to throw in the Merc foregrip here because we need more recoil control. And also, sometimes when you get caught with your pants down, having a little bit of hip fire with a good AR can be kind of nice. So it kind of does like a double whammy, and it's pretty solid. So I'd recommend you guys to run the Merc foregrip on this gun. After that, in the magazine section, we're running the 30-round magazine. I mean, listen, if you're running the 24, you're just kind of a pussy. Just run the 30 on this thing. You just need it, like you really do. It's 30 rounds. It's Warzone. We need those extra rounds. Like just run it. And to finish off this whole thing here, you can either run this to the Corp Combat Hollow site if you don't want to go too crazy with it. But if you're feeling a little bit ballsy, run the VLK 3x optic, and you're gonna be beaming some people. Hopefully, as long as you can keep your shots on target. I mean, that's just kind of the caveat to this gun. So it's great if you guys can, maintain accuracy, but if you can't, well, you're putting yourself in a massive, massive disadvantage in Warzone. Pretty solid gun, though, if you can hit your shots. Now we're taking a look at the ODEN here. This is an interesting one. Actually pretty good. Doesn't ever get used, though. So first thing on here, this is an interesting one, though, because we have a colossal suppressor, which is technically, I mean, it's colossal in size, for sure. You guys can see it on screen, but it's also does a little bit more than the mono suppressor. What I'd recommend for you guys to use though is actually the Colossus suppressor. It's pretty solid. It works out pretty nicely for this gun, so don't expect it to be very mobile, but it's gonna hit pretty hard. I've done the barrel section. We're on the 810mm barrel. This is the largest barrel out there. Highly recommend you guys run this. In the underbarrel section, we just need the Commando foregrip. We ain't gonna go too crazy with this thing and slow you down even more than what we're doing already, so just the Commando. And then the magazine section, need the 30. I mean, this has got 30 rounds and it's a fully automatic weapon, which is a little bit nutty. So 30 rounds is definitely the way to go. And then of course the optics section, throw on that beautiful VLK, and you're gonna be beaming people. It's not gonna be a super fast firing gun, but it will be a very solid gun. You're gonna hit your shots, and when you do, they're gonna be hitting pretty dang hard. So this gun doesn't get used much, but it's pretty solid. Now let's take a look at one of my favorite ARs to use right now, the GRAU 5.56. This is the Wolf Mother variant. Absolutely love this thing. It's probably one of the best ones out there you guys can buy, by the way. Not just for the look, but for the attachments it comes with here. So muzzle category, mono suppressor on this bad boy. After that, in the barrel section, we're throwing the Tempest 26.4 Archangel. Absolutely love this thing. After that, in the laser section, we're throwing the TAC laser, aim down sight speed, aiming stability, aim walking steadiness. Gotta love this thing. We're not gonna be using an optic on this bad boy. In the underbarrel section, the Commando foregrip, recoil stabilization, aiming stability. This is really solid. Absolutely love the Commando. You don't need anything more. You genuinely do not need anything more. And in the magazine section, we have the 60-round magazine, or if you want to add a little bit more mobility, the 50-round magazine. But for me, I like the 60. It's got this cool little red, to it, and it actually works out pretty nicely. It's one of my favorite ARs to use right now. Definitely a top tier meta AR, and the iron sights are beautiful on this thing. Super good. You guys should definitely be using the GRAU. All right, now let's take a look at probably one of the least used ARs in Warzone right now, the SCAR. For good reason, this thing kind of sucks. So we'll give you guys a setup for it, but it's not going to be, a regular AR setup. We have to use this as kind of like a hybrid. Muzzle mono suppressor, obviously. After that, we're skipping the barrel section entirely. Under barrel section, we're getting that Merc foregrip on here. We definitely need the Merc or the Commando, your choice. I've ran the Commando, it works out pretty nicely. Merc works out pretty nicely. Actually, I'll take that back. I'm going with the Commando on this build here. I'm just starting to remember back to my trauma of trying to use this thing. So the Commando, I guess, is what I was using on it to make it the most effective. After that, in the magazine section, we got the 30-round magazine here. That's just kind of like pitiful that it is a 30, not more. At least if it had 45, that'd be great, but it's only got 30. In the rear grip section, we're going with the stipple grip tape here to increase ADS speed, sprint to fire speed. We're not going to throw an optic on this bad boy, by the way. And then for our stock, we're actually going to go with the the FSS close quarter stock here, because we just want that ADS speed. This is going to work out pretty nicely as a very close quarters build, but I don't suggest you guys use this anything outside of very close quarters. I mean, this is about as effective as you can make the SCAR. Genuinely, it's not that good. I mean, you can try it, but I wouldn't recommend it. Now let's take a look at the bar. I never use this gun. I mean, just because it's too slow, but if y'all want to use this thing, here you go. Muzzle, MX silencer, obviously. In the barrel section, we are going to run the CGC27 2B barrel. This is the largest barrel out there, and it works out pretty nicely. I definitely recommend it. After that, in the underbarrel section, what we're going to do is we are going to run, I take that back. We're going to run the Carver foregrip here. I was about to say we're going to run something else, but we're definitely not. I actually don't even have this thing fully maxed out. It's like a couple levels away from being maxed out. I just personally don't use this thing, but the Carver foregrip is definitely the way to go. In the magazine section, we're going to run the .50 BMG 30-round mag. This is just, like the BMG just hits really hard. It's going to have a little bit of recoil, but, I mean, it hits really hard. After that, in the ammunition side of things, we're going to go through on the lengthen to increase our bullet velocity, which is definitely beneficial as an AR. And the rear grip section, we're going to throw on the leather grip here. This is going to give us those benefits without any cons, so we like that. In the optics section, we're going to throw on the G16 2.5 times. Gotta love this thing. It's pretty solid. And then in the stock section, what we're going to do is we're going to throw on, the pistol grip here custom. I completely forgot which one I was using for a second, but the pistol grip custom is what I've been using ever since I unlocked it, and I actually really like this thing. Then for our perks, couple of different options in here. What I kind of recommend for you guys to do is run the sleight of hand perk, just because we only have 30 rounds in the magazine, so having sleight of hand works out pretty nicely. And then for our perk 2, we're gonna run fully loaded. There's not really too much else to this. I mean, it's just, this is the bar. I don't really see too many people using it for good reason. It's not all that great. It's pretty slow, but it hits pretty hard, so it's up to you guys. All right, now for the Ram 7, I'm going to start speeding these things up because I realize I've been talking here for quite a while, and I don't want to make this an hour-long video. So muzzle, mono suppressor, barrel section, we're going to run the FSS Ranger on this thing. Now in the underbarrel section, the Commando foregrip, don't gotta explain this one. The magazine section, 50-round magazine, it's the only thing we got. And then last but definitely not least in the optic, we're running the Corp Combat Hollow. Absolutely love using this thing as a mid-tier range AR. This thing works out pretty nicely. Give this thing a shot, works out great. Definitely one I'm trying to make a separate video on right now. Okay, now we're taking a look at the Modern Warfare FR 5.56. This thing's kind of like, this is probably one of the worst ARs you guys could possibly use. So, I mean, hey, if you want to use it and you want to struggle and you want to hate your life, go for it. Muzzle category mono. Barrel section, we're running the 24 sniper barrel. This thing is just, you know, makes it the best it can be for what it is. Underbarrel section, commando foregrip. Magazine section, we're running the 60 round magazine on this thing. I mean, it's a burst, so you guys can get away with 50. I mean, personal preference. I don't ever use this thing because it's terrible. And then on optic section, we're running the Corp Combat Hollow Sight just because the recoil on this thing is a little bit interesting. Bounce is a little bit too much for what it is. And so that's pretty much that. This is the Modern Warfare FR 5.56, and it also looks like the Famas. This is kind of a cool variant I have, but it's a cool variant for a really bad gun. Now let's take a look at the XM4. XM4 is going to be a primary AR build. We don't make this into a hybrid AR SMG. This is the Annihilation variant, by the way, since it's going a little bit crazy. People are going to ask. Agency suppressor, barrel section, 13.5 task force. Gotta love this thing. Underbarrel section, we're gonna run the field agent grip. This is gonna be the best way to go for this gun. Magazine section, we got the 45 round magazine on this bad boy. This is just what I like to use. And in the optic section, we have the Axial Arms 3 times, as this is also my favorite one to use, and it also looks pretty cool. There's like a nice little white rabbit, little Fury one right here. This is my build for the XM4. Definitely check this one out. Absolutely love this thing. It's pretty solid. Now taking a look at the Cold War AK-47. First thing on this, muzzle category, GRAU suppressor. After that, barrel section, 20 Spetsnaz RPK barrel. This is going to make this the most effective as it can be at longer ranges. So that's the reason we're running that. Underbarrel section, we'll run the Spetsnaz grip here. This is the field agent equivalent. So that's the reason we're running that. Magazine section, 45 round base magazine. We don't need to run anything else just because it'll slow it down too much, and we don't need to do that. Then for our optic section, of course, the Axial Arms 3 times, and this is just the way to go. My full AK-47 build here. Hope y'all enjoy this one. Pretty solid AR, if I say so myself. I absolutely love this thing, to be honest with you. Now let's take a look at a bit of a classic AR that was super meta, the Krig 6. This thing still has pretty little recoil. Definitely solid. Doesn't hit as hard as it used to, though, but it's still pretty good. Muzzle category, agency suppressor, barrel section, the CMV mil spec. This is just the way to go on this one here. After that, in the underbarrel section, we're on the field agent grip, and this is the solid one. I just really like this one. And in the magazine section, we're actually going to go with the Stenag 60 round magazine just because this thing doesn't hit as hard as it should, so I really think we need a little bit more ammo in the magazine. So 60 is going to be the way to go. And of course, in the optic section, we don't run anything else besides an Axial Arms 3 times on this gun. There's no real reason to run anything else genuinely. So just go ahead and run this. This is my full build for it. Kind of crappy that this Ice Drake variant doesn't cover more of the gun. Once again, wish they'd fix that. They got enough people and resources to make that happen, but they don't. Now taking a look at the FFAR, this is a gun that just doesn't get used as an AR, so we're not going to build it as an AR. We're building this pretty much like an SMG. So let's jump into this thing. Muzzle category, we're throwing on the regular suppressor here. This is just the way to go on this gun. After that, skipping the barrel, going to the laser. We're going to throw on the Tiger Team Spotlight. It's going to help us be a little bit more agile, a little bit more mobile. Going after that down to the magazine section, we're going to throw on the 50 round magazine, the base 50 round magazine, not the fast mag. We don't want to slow ourselves down more because they did nerf the movement, the overall mobility of this gun quite a bit. Then over in the rear grip section, going for the Serpent wrap here to increase our ADS time. And then in the stock section, we go for the Raider stock. And this is just going to make ourselves a little bit more mobile. So this is great. This is my full build here for the FFAR. Pretty solid gun. Used to be super dummy overpowered, but it's not as much anymore. All right, now let's take a look here at the Groza. This is another AR that doesn't get used for good reason because it's really not all that great. Muzzle category, GRAU suppressor, barrel section, CMV mil spec. This is just like the largest barrel possible, so we're gonna throw that on there. Underbarrel section, what we're gonna do is we're gonna run the Spetsnaz, I was gonna say not the speed grip, the Spetsnaz grip. Here, the last one on there. In the magazine section, we're gonna go throw on the 60 round drum magazine, or you guys can throw on the 45 round drum magazine. Just kind of depends, like a little personal preference, but you know, 60 round or 45 works out great. In the optic section, there's a couple of different options in here. You guys can either run something like, you know, the Axial Arms, or you can run something like the Microflex LED if you want to make this thing a little bit more just kind of closer to medium range sniper support, but it's just kind of up to you guys. Axial Arms works great, so does the Microflex, but I wouldn't really recommend using this gun overall. Not really that great, don't recommend it. It's just kind of a little bit of an interesting one. This gun seems to be making a bit of a comeback, the FFAR 83. Let's get into this build here. Muzzle, GRAU suppressor, of course, that's the way to go. Barrel section, we have a couple options in here. I've seen people run the Spetsnaz RPK. Personally, what I do is I run the Liberator barrel because I like having a little bit more mobility. This gun can be really ungodly slow for no reason, so the Liberator is the way I, you know, choose to run this gun. In the underbarrel section, I'm going to run the Spetsnaz grip here like I normally would for any other build. In the magazine section, we're in the 45 round magazine to lessen our, you know, slowness of using this thing. And then in the optics section, we also run the axle arms 3 times as our final attachment. Overall, pretty solid gun. Doesn't get enough love. It's really solid, but it's probably making a bit of a return right now. I think Jake just made a video on it. Now we're taking a look at the C58. C58 still a top tier rifle, but not that many people use it because the recoil has been increased. Muzzle, agency, barrel section, task force, under barrel. We're gonna go for the field agent. Not gonna explain this. Magazine section, we're gonna go for the 45 round magazine, though the 55 can work out pretty nicely as well as the reload speed is incredibly fast on this gun. 45 is my preference. After that, course final, I mean, we ain't using nothing else besides an axle arms 3 times. It's my full build here on the C58. Y'all can't really do much better than this. Like, genuinely, C58, real hard-hitting gun, but if you can manage, as long as it'll be great, as long as you can, manage that recoil. Otherwise, don't do it. Much like the C58, the EM2 here for our next gun is going to be a hard-hitting one, but you need to manage that recoil. Muzzle, agency, barrel section, 25.8 task force, under barrel section, field agent grip here. This is just the way to go. Magazine section, the 40 round, we're going to go straight for that 40. Don't need to use that 50. It's going to slow us down too much. On the optics section, axle arms 3 times. This is my full build here for the EM2. On probably closer to the top of the list of guns you should never use, the Grav. This is a really terrible AR. DLC weapon that is forgotten. So muzzle category, agency, barrel section, task force. I mean, this thing's got stupid recoil, so you need that task force on this thing. Under barrel section, field agent grip, magazine section, we're gonna go with the 50 round magazine. We're not gonna go for any of this other weird shenanigans in here. Don't need that. And then the optics section, I wouldn't really recommend much more than the axle arms, which is up here. You guys can go with maybe a microflex if you really want to, but axle arms or microflex could be the way to go on this gun. Don't ever recommend using this gun, by the way. Not good, but if you want to, this is the build for it. It's just really not that great. Now let's take a look at the QBZ. Kind of an underrated AR, but it's pretty solid, to be honest with you guys. So muzzle category, agency, barrel section, we got the 15.5 task force. Is this the way to go for this gun? Under barrel section, the field agent grip. We absolutely love the field agent on this gun. Magazine, 45 round drum magazine. You really can't go wrong with this. And of course, the classic axle arms 3 times. There's no real other way to build this gun. This is just kind of the way to go. Seriously, a lot of these Cold War ARs get built the same with the Modern Warfare ARs. Now for the AS-VAL, this actually doesn't get built like an AR. This is like an AR, but it's not really an AR. It's used like an SMG as a secondary. So first thing in the barrel section, we're gonna go for the 200mm OSA barrel. After that, in the underbarrel section, we can either go for the Merc foregrip, or you guys can go with maybe something like the Ranger. But for me, I think the Merc actually works out pretty nicely, so just use the Merc. In the magazine section, go for the 30 round magazine as it comes to 20 rounds base. We're definitely not trying to make this thing into a sniper, so we need 30. That's kind of our only option. In the rear grip section, we're going to go for the stipple grip tape to make us a little bit more agile, a bit more mobile. Then, of course, in the stock section, what we're going to do is we're going to go for the Estavo 6P30 Skeleton for the aim walking movement speed and aim down sight speed. This is my full build here for the AS-VAL. Pretty solid one. Works in pubs and also in Warzone the exact same way. I'm just going to keep it a stack with you guys. I don't even have this gun fully leveled up because it's so bad. So y'all can use this as like a hipfire build. This is the hipfire build right here. Recoil booster, the Empress Falchion A barrel, the Carver foregrip, the Russian short 60 round magazine with the frangible bullets. We got the rubber grip on here, the slate reflector as your optic, the Kolvenskaya custom stock, and of course then we have the gung ho perk just so you can like run around at full speed and hip fire this thing because it's kind of ridiculous. Then we have the fully loaded. This is my full build for this thing. Don't ever recommend using it. It's really unbelievably niche and not that great. And for our last gun, I really can't even make this a last gun because it's the Itra Burst. This thing's level 5. It is ungodly awful. Don't ever use the Itra Burst. It is by far the worst AR in the entirety of Warzone. It takes the cake for that. Anyways, if y'all enjoyed this video, it's a long one. Give it a like, subscribe if you are brand new. I suffered trying to make this because this was a lot of talking, and I really appreciate that. And with that being said, just don't know, triple cap, don't be Randy, and I'm out. Peace.